Will the Ragin Cajuns offense put up points against that stingy Tennessee Vols defense? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, still vacationing up with Mama Schultz in central New York, running in 30-degree weather. Yay, me. But we do have the NCAA tournament brackets and the Sunbelt's Louisiana Ragin Cajuns taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, let's back it up a bit because the last time that the Cajuns went to the NCAA tournament just about a decade ago in 2014, they ended up playing Creighton and Dougie McBuckets, right? Doug McDermott and the Creighton Blue Jays. And the question was, could they keep up? Could they score as many points? Because Creighton was a high-powered offense. I think they could have, but Sean Long, in that case, remember it was Sean Long and Alfred Payton's team, and Sean Long got into foul trouble in the first 5 minutes. I think they made a run towards the end of the half, and then, again, Sean Long was just in foul trouble throughout the whole game, so Creighton ends up pulling away in the second half. This game is going to be very different. Tennessee plays some serious defense. Now, the Cajuns like to get up and down. They can play some defense as well, but and especially three-point defense, which is going to be big against Tennessee. But Tennessee plays some of the best defense in the country. For example, they give up the third fewest points in the country, 58 points a game. Only Houston gives up about 56, and North Texas gives up just over 56. Pretty good. All right. So St. Mary's is 60. Even Virginia is over 60 points a game, just barely. So Tennessee, playing out of the SEC, giving up 58 points a game. That is going to be tough for the Ragin Cajuns. They want to get up and down. They want to play in the 70s. And they're going to have an interesting matchup against the Volunteers. Now, when it comes to the matchup, I'm a little bit surprised at the line at 10 because, I think the Cajuns are going to give Tennessee a game. All right, I may be a little bit of a homer for this. If there is no foul trouble on either side of the ball, I think the Cajun size can have an effect on Tennessee, okay? Also, no Zakai Zeigler, all right? The point guard is the second leading scorer on the team. About a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he hurt his knee. He's out for the season. Just an awful injury to Tennessee because they're playing very well, and they are a tough team. And most of the time, let's be honest, unless your offensive team just shoots and lights up from three, the team that plays slow and doesn't give up a lot of points, they're the ones who dictate pace. All right. It's usually the big time defensive teams that dictate pace. All right. And when you're missing a Zakai Zeigler, it's really going to hurt Tennessee. When I saw the potential to play Tennessee for most of the week, I thought that was pretty good. That's not a bad matchup for the Cajuns. And then but on Saturday, it came out after Duke won the ACC, and maybe Sunday morning, well, now Duke can play Louisiana. I'm like, that is not what the Cajuns want to see. All right. There's no one playing better in the country right now, almost, than Duke, right? Duke's getting healthy, and they're just playing better, and I think that would be a bad matchup, okay? You do have Santiago Vescovi, who is, he is a handful, all right? He is like, the Steph Curry version, right? Not that prolific scoring-wise, but all he does is move without the ball, and he's very good, shoots about 37% from three, so he's really good. Olivier Kamwa, he is the big guy inside, along with Euros Plavsic. And are those guys, what are they going to be able to do against Jordan Brown? Because if we do, again, Jordan Brown having a kind of season that Sean Long with, maybe not quite as dominant because he's got a little bit of help on his squad from the Greg Williams, and we'll get to him because he's going to be important, from the Jalen Delacortes, and, of course, the Themis Folks, and the Terrence Lewis is the second. So he does have some help. Whereas, right now, looking at Tennessee stats, right, they got 4 guys, including Zeigler, unfortunately for Tennessee, that average in double figures, but no one averages more than 15 points a game. In fact, Vescovi averages 13 points a game. So they don't have this explosive score. They're a very balanced team. So maybe one guy goes off here and one guy goes off there, that kind of thing. So they are very balanced. I think it is a tough matchup, though, for Tennessee, just because of the size. When you have, Joe Charles is not really a scoring machine off the bench, but he can play some defense, especially maybe against some smaller guys. And then you do have Jordan Brown and you do have Lewis. Even Greg Williams is a little bit of a bigger guard. It will be interesting to see who covers Vescovi. All right. It will be interesting to see that because Themis Folks is a bit too small. It won't be Lewis because he's quicker than him. It will be maybe Delacourt is going to play. All right. And you would think Greg Williams would try to match up with. They're both in that size range. Vescovi is a 6'3", 192, and that's basically Greg Williams and Delacourt. So we will get back to them in a minute because it's going to be very exciting. I think they have a shot. It is, if they can get this game into the 70s, they have a shot. If this game is being played 65 or less, it's going to be tough for the Cajuns. All right. That's where Tennessee wants to play it. Although I guess they average about 70 points a game. They don't want the Cajuns to be getting up and down. And if the Cajuns shoot threes like they did in the Sun Belt tournament against South, then Tennessee's going to have their hands full. Okay. Again, I would presume they're going to try and get the big guys inside in foul trouble, but we shall see. All right. When we come back, we'll talk about Greg Williams and why he is so important for the Cajuns in this matchup. But first, how about this? We got the Built March Madness bracket. How about that? We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now it's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. I will be voting for the Churro Puff. And if you want the Churro Puff team to win, you'll be voting for that as well. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built Bar's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing. You won't think they're good for you. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they're high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And as I've mentioned, prior to coming home and having Mama Schultz's good cooking, I was down 13 and a half pounds with the big help of Built Bar. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop on in and support your pick. Okay. Dave Schultz with Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. It is important, and I don't know if it was sloughed off or not, and he tried to go in the Sunbelt Championship game, but Greg Williams ended up with what Bob Marlin called turf toe. That is not an easy thing to play with, all right? And they don't heal very quickly either. That is not something that you can wrap up and, or get a shot in necessarily and play. It is painful and it is lingering, and we'll see how serious it is. Because if Greg Williams can be the Robin to Jordan Brown's Batman, the Cajuns can make a little bit of a run. And by that means maybe win a couple of ball games. But they need Greg Williams. He, as we've mentioned throughout the season, he had that 5-game streak where he was scoring 20 points a game. In the 10-game winning streak, and helping Jordan Brown carry the load. And then once he started coming back down to earth, then it was an issue. And it was really inconsistent. So let's see here. From Texas State, January 21st to February 4th against Marshall, 22 points, 21 points, 21 points, 23 points, 20 points. And then 4, 15, 9, 12, 18, 2, 10, 9, and 0 in the Sun Belt Championship game, where he did not play in the second half because of the turf toe. Tried to go in the first half, had a really difficult time covering Isaiah Moore. And so that's going to be a key thing for the Ragin Cajuns. If Greg Williams can go, because now you can almost as not quite as balanced. Let's see if that's true before I say it again. Whereas Tennessee is really balanced and doesn't have like the one big scorer, the Cajuns are not really balanced, and they do have the one big scorer, right? Jordan Brown almost averages 20 points a game. They have two other guys in double figures. One is Greg Williams. One is Terrence Lewis. Themis Folks is almost there, 9.5 points a game. So they do have basically 4 scorers, but one of them scores almost 20 a game. So that's a big deal. And so if Greg Williams can get going, Terrence Lewis can get going, Themis Folks can get going, and a Jalen Delcourt gets going, would be huge. All right. He had a big ball game against South Alabama in the Sun Belt Championship. Him and Folks were really the difference in that game. Kentrell Garnett is really the 3-point shooter, and he hasn't been doing much. It's almost like every team sort of is focused on him. He shoots 42% from threes. He's a really good 3-point shooter. He leads a squad in 3-point shooting, not by a little bit. Greg Williams has made more, although he shoots 40%, so that's pretty good too. But I think Greg Williams is the key. He needs to be healthy, both offensively and defensively. And then maybe, here's the other thing, the Cajuns can rotate on Vescovy. All right. You can do Williams. You can do Kentrell Garnett. You can do Delcourt. I think Joe Charles is going to be a little bit too, Vescovy's going to be a little bit too quick for Charles, but maybe just to change things up. All right. And that's why I think it's going to be an interesting ball game. If the Cajuns stay out of foul trouble, they're going to have a shot at this game. I think that 10-point spread is reputation, is what I think. I think it's reputation. Tennessee's good. They're in the SEC. The Cajuns, although they've won 27 ball games this year, looked down upon because they're out of the Sun Belt. This was the matchup. If I was the Ragin Cajuns, I'd much rather have this matchup than the Duke matchup. Just saying. That's the way I see things. I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Tennessee's the favorite. I don't deny that. All right. I think the 10-point spread is a little bit big for me. Let's see what Tennessee's done recently. I know I got to find out exactly when Zeigler went down, but so they've won. Let's see here. They've won 3 out of their last 5, losing to Missouri in the SEC tournament. They beat Ole Miss. They lost to Auburn. They beat South Carolina and Arkansas before that, but they lost to A&M and Kentucky. They did beat Alabama. That was probably their best win all season long. I can't imagine that was with Zeigler, but maybe or without Zeigler. But that was February 15th. I think he must have been hurt the following week. But I do need to check on that. But I mean, these are the wins, right, for Tennessee. I mean, they lost to Missouri 86-85. That's a lot of points. They beat Alabama 68-59. They lost to Kentucky 66-54. They lost to A&M 68-63, right? They did beat South Carolina, exploding offensively 85-45. They beat Arkansas 75-57. They lost 79-70 to Auburn. They beat Ole Miss 70-55. And they did lose to Missouri 79-71. So let's check out these wins. The opponents in their wins, 55, 57, 45, 59, 43. They beat Texas, giving up 71 points, 41 points, 56 points, 59 points. So again, if somehow the Cajuns can get into the high 60s and the low 70s, they got a good shot in this ball game. They really do. Now, whether Tennessee scores that many is a different story. But when they win, they generally hold the other team down. Missouri's a 1-point game. That's kind of tough. 86-85. That's a 1-point game. That game could go either way. So could the Vanderbilt game, which they lost, but that was 66-65 compared to the two teams in the 80s. But when they win, when Tennessee wins, the other team scores 55, 57, 45, 59, 43. All right. Again, Texas was an aberration, 71, 41 to Georgia, 56 to LSU, Mississippi State 59, Kentucky. They actually lost to Kentucky 63, 56. They did beat Vanderbilt, giving up 68 points. All right. A couple other ball games in there. Again, South Carolina 42, Mississippi State 53. Again, some of those teams are not the best, but goodness gracious, get to that 65 point. If the Cajuns are at that 70 point level, which is what they average, I think they average more than that, right? I think they average what I saw. I think they average 75. They're not as highly ranked as I thought. They're 63rd in the nation, averaging 75.5 points a game. So that's really what it is. The Cajuns 75.5 points a game. Offensively, Tennessee gives up 56 points a game. 58 points a game. The closer the Cajuns get to 70, the better chance they're going to have to win. All right. Get up towards that 65, and it's going to be tough for Tennessee to win that ball game. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll be back and put a bow on it after this. Hopefully, we do have a crossover episode this week with Eric Kane looking at you, Locked On Vols. But first, let me tell you about a little FanDuel. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything, from the money line to the point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay. Dave Schultz with the last segment for today's episode. And this is where I would be nervous of Tennessee. This is just me. All right. I believe they play late on Thursday night. I believe they're playing, right? They play on Thursday night, and it's at 9:40 Eastern time, 8:40 Central time. All right. And they are playing in the East. So it will be 9:40 p.m. when they take the floor if everything goes on time. This is what I'm going to look for if I'm Tennessee. They need upsets. They need some upsets to happen, and especially maybe even in Orlando. Because if no upsets happen, then you're the one who's going to get upset. If I am the Ragin Cajuns and see some other upsets, then maybe Tennessee's ready for it, or, it balances out. All I know is that when my team plays late and there's no upsets or big upsets during the day, and this would be a big upset, 4 versus 13, it usually happens. That's all I'm saying. All right, so if I am Tennessee, I'm hoping that there are more upsets to come before we play our game, or there's going to be a lot of pressure. Plus, boy, when you're playing at 8 o'clock in the Central Time Zone, that's late. Okay, that's late. And I bet you one time maybe Tennessee played, but even I'm not even sure if they played a 9 p.m. game. The Cajuns played an 8 p.m. game. They finished up with South Alabama. That's an 8 p.m. game. And I talked to some of the Cajuns coaches, like, that was a long day. It's only an extra hour, but it is a long day. The players are anxious. The fans are anxious. This is 9:40 Eastern time. You're not going to get on the court before 9:40. That makes for a long, long day. Although it is Thursday, it's not Friday. So you do get to the game much sooner. But again, if I'm Tennessee, I'm hoping there's some upsets along the way, and we're not everyone is looking at us, because I think it's going to be a good matchup. Cajuns are deep. They do have scoring across the board, and here's the other thing: they may have the best player on the court. Jordan Brown could be the best player on the court. That's the other thing. All right, that just hit me. Jordan Brown will probably be the best player on the court in that ballgame. And it's not always the case when the team with the best player on the court wins, but it's going to be pretty good. Now, if nobody else shows up or Jordan Brown gets into foul trouble, then it's going to be a tough go of it. But if Themis Folk shows up like he did against South Alabama, if Jalen Delcourt shows up, if Greg Williams is healthy, I think the Ragin Cajuns can make this ball game. All right. Again, we're hoping to get a crossover edition so we can preview it together, see what our guy Eric Kane thinks from Locked On Vols. I'm sure he thinks it's going to be an easy win. I'm sure that's what he thinks, only because he probably hasn't seen the Ragin Cajuns play, and I don't blame him for that. He would have no reason to do so, whereas the rest of us may watch a Tennessee ball game or two throughout the season. All right. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please continue to subscribe. It is growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, we've had, I think, maybe by 125% over the last month. Subscribers have grown by like 125%. We've certainly more than doubled in the last month. So thank you so much, and really appreciate it. Please subscribe. You can find it on YouTube. Search Locked On Sunbelt. Not difficult. Also, wherever you get your podcast, you can download it from there as well. You can listen on your phone at your convenience. All right. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been watching or listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.